Hello, friendlings. How are you doing? Hey, what's up, guys? Hope you're all keeping well. It's been quite a while since the last YouTube video. Unfortunately, I'm not able to make them as frequently as I used to. But nevertheless, I'm making a video today all about Eevee's Revalver 4. So, for those who aren't aware of what Revalver 4 is, it's basically a software guitar amplifier, much in the same vein as like LePo or Positive Grid's Bias. The reason I want to make a video about it is because when I was looking for a software guitar amplifier, I spent a crazy amount of time trying everything that was on the market. And in the end, I landed on Revalver 4 as the one that fit my preferences and what I needed. So I just want to make a video showing a little bit of what it can do and giving a tutorial on how you can make a pretty decent metal tone for under $20. So it's not going to be a world-class tone. It will not replace your $2,000 Behemoth tube amplifier, but it will be decent. It will get the job done. And then hopefully by the end, we should have a rhythm tone that will sound something like this. And then after that, I'll go over a lead tone, which should hopefully sound something like this. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so here we are in Cubase, which is what I use, but obviously the process will be exactly the same no matter what DAW you use. And also Revalver can run in standalone should you require that. So this top track is just for processing the microphone, so we'll pretend that doesn't exist. And this second track is basically the finished tone that I've made, where I've made an attempt to create, you know, an acceptable metal tone for under $20. It sounds like this. Now, one thing I want to mention quickly is the way I'm capturing the audio from Cubase to send it to OBS, the screen capture software, is I'm basically using a plugin that hijacks the signal before it hits the master bus, and it then processes it and sends it to OBS. And I have a funny feeling that it might color the sound slightly. So I'm thinking what I'll do at the end of the video is maybe record like a little demo using actual wave files bounced out from Cubase, so you can get a more accurate idea of what I intended the tone to sound like. But for the video's purposes, it will be fine. So that's that. And this bottom track is basically just the guitar going straight into the audio interface and then straight into Cubase. So it's just a raw guitar signal with no processing on it. Okay, so let's get Revalver loaded up on this bad boy. So Revalver is actually a free download, so you can go and download it right now. And when you open it up for the first time, it will look like this. Now, one of the coolest things about Revalver is, even though you've downloaded it for free and you haven't purchased anything for it yet, you have access to everything right from the beginning. So you have all the amps, all the stomp boxes, and all the effects. And basically, you can spend as much time as you want trying all of these out and auditioning them and seeing what works for you. And basically, if you haven't actually purchased a license for it, you'll see it has a little D here. So if I load this one up, for example, you get that sound playing every 30 seconds or minute or something like that. So that's supposed to be your incentive to actually go and buy the licenses to get rid of that watermark sound. But the cool thing about that is you can try everything out and build your tone, and then when it does come time for you to actually purchase the licenses for the items that you want, you're only buying what you know you're going to use. Because for me, that's one of the big turn-offs of a lot of the other digital amp modelers, whether it be, you know, hardware or software based, is, you know, they will often market it to you like, oh, this comes with 60 guitar amplifiers and 100 stomp boxes and 1 million cab impulses. And I'm a pretty simple player. I just want 1 amp, maybe 2 if I'm gonna use something else for a lead tone. I don't need 60 amps. So for me, there's really no point in buying some of this really expensive stuff, because it's just, I'll be spending money on content that I'm never going to use. So that's one of the most attractive things about Revalver for me. And in fact, I also wanted to mention another company that's doing something similar to this called Moer, or Moer. I think it's Moer. It's spelled Mooer. And they've actually done a line of pedals recently that are basically like, you know how on an Axe-Fx you might have amp models like, you know, a 5150 amp model, and then be a Mesa rectifier model and a Dietzel one and stuff like that. They've basically taken an individual amp model and put it into a stomp box, an actual pedal that you can buy. So it's a similar sort of concept. Instead of buying a big unit with 60 amps that you're never going to use, you can just go and buy the one that you want. And I'd really like to try them out, actually, because it would be kind of convenient to have one of those amps in a stomp box. In fact, I was in Hong Kong recently, and I went to Tom Lee Music there, and they had a whole bunch of them, but they didn't have the one I wanted. I'm really keen to try out the 5150 pedal. It's like the EVH 5150, not the PV one. But yeah, I'd be really keen to try them out. They look pretty cool. So before we go and get into building the tone, let's head over to the store quickly, and I can show you that. So this is the Revalver website, and you can go here to download Revalver 4 for free. And then after you spend some time making your tone and decided on what you want to buy, you can go to the amp store. And here they have everything: amplifiers, stomp boxes, effects. So basically you've got amplifiers for $8 a piece, stomp boxes for $4 a piece, effects $5, cabs $2. So you can start to get an idea of how you can build like an actual usable guitar rig for a very, very cheap price. So after you've actually made a purchase, you have to download it onto a key, and that key can be a USB stick or your mobile phone. In my case, I use a mobile phone because I take it with me everywhere anyway. And when you load up Revalver, it will scan for that license, and then it gets rid of that annoying watermark. So let's start building this tone. So I guess if I was doing like a proper review of Revalver, I would start to go through some presets and let you guys hear what they sound like. But for me, personally, I always build my tones from scratch. I've had to do that ever since the beginning, because with anything I've ever purchased to do with digital amp modeling, the out-of-the-box presets usually don't sound that great, and Revalver's no exception in that regard. Most of the high-gain presets are really, really saturated, and they have problems with like flubbiness on the low end. So for me personally, I've always gotten better results from making tones myself. I think you develop your ear, and you also learn a little bit about your own preferences. You develop your own preferences of what you want in a tone, and I think building your own personality on the guitar is really, really important. So we're going to build the tone from scratch. But of course, you are more than welcome to download the software and go through these presets if you want to. There's an absolute shit ton of them. So first thing we need is an amp and cab. Now, you get given 2 amps to begin with, even if you haven't purchased anything yet. You get the Custom Light 20 watt and the PV Valve King Mark II. Now, when I first started using Revalver, I used the Angel PB2, which is obviously modeled off the Engel Powerball But again, that has some problems with fluffiness on the low end. So I spent a considerable amount of time going through all the obvious high gain choices and ended up landed on the PV6505 as my favorite. So that's the one we're going to use. So when you first load it up, straight out of the box as you will, it sounds like this. Not that great, to be honest, but trust me, with some love and affection, we can turn this into something that is pretty damn good, in my opinion. Now, you'll notice the cab still has the D for demo on it, but we'll be swapping that out soon. So first thing we want to do is go to the second channel, because we are going to play metal, and immediately you can hear some hiss, which tells me, like everything else in this damn software, it's using too much gain. Way too much gain. So first thing we'll do is pull the pre-gain down to about 2. So you should have 2 on the pre and post gain, which tightens it up a little bit. Now for the 3-band EQ, for the minute we'll leave that, but I think even at the end of the tone, you're going to need to change that based on, you know, your own preferences and your guitar and your pickups and your play style. So we won't touch that for the minute. Same for the resonance and presence, and we'll go ahead and swap the cab out. Now, one of the cool things you can do in Revalver is you can blend multiple cabs together. So the first thing we'll load up is the audio stream splitter, and then we will put 2 cabs in that. So you put one there and one here. Scroll down a bit. So basically you can blend these 2 cabs together to make your tone. Now the cabinet that I like to use is the Flat Hill 4x12, and we'll load the same cab up. Basically we're going to use the same cab and the same microphone. We're just going to blend 2 different positions on the speaker. So use the Flat Hill 4x12 and then change the microphone. This is obviously supposed to be a Mesa 4x12. And what we'll do is we'll keep one in the middle and we'll do one at the very left-hand side here. So you have one that's a fairly bright sound and one that's a fairly dark sound. And we blend them together in sort of an 80-20 roughly. It should sound like this. Already sounding way, way better. Now, immediately I can hear that there is simply just too much low end in that, so we'll bring the low down a little bit and bring the mid up. Yeah, already sounds way better. So that's a surprisingly good tone for just using one cab and one amp, which is, you know, the cab is $2 and then the amp's $8. You know, it's pretty good. Now, one thing, the extra, like, icing on the cake that we'll do to this tone is we will go to the stomps and I'm going to use the Slammer compressor here. Now, I'm not actually using this as a compressor. Basically, we're going to turn the gain, the attack all the way down, the gain all the way down, and the compression all the way off. Because I'm not really using this as a compressor. If I'm going to compress it, I'll do it, you know, post. But it does color the tone in a way that I like and makes it a little bit more tighter. That's without the compressor on. And that is almost it. So then the other thing we want to do is if you click the arrow by this input, here you have an inbuilt noise gate, which is always very handy. So you can basically set that, obviously dependent on the output of your pickups. I usually have it set pretty high, and that will just help it get extra tight. So that's everything that we're going to be doing to the rhythm tone within Revalver. Now, the last thing I want to do is just EQ it a little bit. So I'll use the inbuilt Cubase EQ for this, and obviously you will have your own in whatever other DAW you're using. So all I'm going to do is just low pass it, basically, just to take out some of the high-end like fizziness, which is always a massive problem. Now, you can go, that's all I'm going to do on this tone, which technically is not enough, but we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. It's just a fun jamming tone, and we don't need to overcomplicate it. But you can spend as much time as you want really honing it in and getting the frequencies right for your preference. So what we'll do is just add a low pass and bring it down to 7,000 or wherever you want to put it. But just takes out that extra fizziness. Now, one thing I want to mention, if you really, really want to keep everything within Revalver, you can obviously do this in there. Basically, you go over to Effects, and you have the Auto Cue here. And somewhere on here, you should have a high pass. A low pass, and you can just bring that down to wherever you want it to go, 7K, 6.5, whatever, and then you can adjust the amount of gain there. So that could be kind of cool if you're like using it on a tablet or something and you don't want to run it within a DAW. You can keep everything in the box if you want. Now, some of you may have noticed there is a whole second signal path here. So if you are really, really into your tone creation and like making complex things, you can use a second set of amps, cabs, and effects and blend them together. I'm not going to do that because I am a simple being and I like simple things, so this is fine for me. But yeah, that's basically everything for the rhythm tone. Let's take a look at the lead. So when it comes to doing the lead tone, generally I'm pretty lazy when it comes to lead tones. So what I do is usually just take the rhythm tone and pump up the gain a little bit and then add a delay, and that's good enough for me for a lead tone. So what we'll do is bring up the pre and the post gain. So pre gain at about 3, post gain about 4. Lower the noise gate a little bit, because obviously you don't want that to be killing your sustain for a lead tone. And what else is there? And then we want to add a delay onto it. Now, there is a delay you can use in Revalver. You have this again delay here, which sounds pretty good just straight out of the box. And you can also add a reverb, and you actually get a free reverb in here, I believe. The C-verb light. Now, I actually don't use the, again, delay, because one of the cool things about using, your amp modeler in a DAW is you can load extra effects as VSTs. So I have, if my chain's going down here, I have Revalver. I usually use, where is it? Fab Filters Timeless, because that's the one that I like. Now, I didn't actually factor a delay into the cost of the tone, because you can get so many cool sounding free delay VSTs online. Like, you don't really need to buy that again delay, to be honest. But if you want everything to be in the box with a Revalver, you can do that. So, but I like the sound of this one. Now, obviously, I'm loading this up within the DAW, but one of the cool things about Revalver is, if you want, you have, where is it? Third-party plugin. Now, you do have to buy this, but if you use that, you can actually load up a VST instrument within Revalver. So if you're using it on standalone, or say, for example, you want to use Revalver on like a a tablet or something where you've gone on holiday, but you don't want to run a full DAW, you can actually keep everything in the box, which is pretty cool. And you also have a similar thing to do with the cabs as well. You have the RAR cabinet modeler, where you can actually load up your own impulses as well if you don't want to use like the inbuilt Revalver one. And then obviously you can do any other processing you want to do to it. If you want to load up a compressor, or you can do an extra noise gate or whatever. The sky is the limit. So yeah, that basically covers it to do with the tones. So what I'll do next is I'll record a short demo of both the rhythm and the lead sound, just so you can hear what it sounds like where it's not being processed by OBS. Okay, so although I've spent the majority of this video singing the praise of Revalver 4, unfortunately I do have to mention that Revalver is not without its flaws. Alright, guys. Until next time.